The judge smirked, shaking his head as he flipped through the documents. The courtroom was silent, everyone waiting for him to speak. Then, with a chuckle, he looked up. "Elon Musk, the genius billionaire who believes he's above the law," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. The prosecution's lawyer grinned, certain that today would be nothing more than a public humiliation for Musk. The gallery was packed, reporters scribbled notes, cameras flashed, and spectators whispered. Everyone thought they already knew how this would end. Musk, however, didn't react. Sitting back, hands folded, his expression remained unreadable. The judge's amusement only grew. "I hope you're ready, Mr. Musk. This isn't one of your Twitter debates. This is a courtroom." A chuckle rippled through the room, but Musk didn't move, his gaze locked on the judge. Then, finally, he spoke, one sentence that made the entire courtroom freeze. Laughter died. The prosecutor's smirk vanished. Even the judge's expression shifted. No one saw this coming. The lead prosecutor adjusted his tie, stepping toward the jury with practiced confidence. His voice was smooth, certain. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, gesturing toward Musk. "We're here today because a billionaire thinks he's above the law." He turned sharply, locking eyes with the judge. "The evidence is overwhelming. Mr. Musk's company has repeatedly violated regulations, ignored legal protocols, and acted with blatant disregard for the rules that govern everyone else." The judge nodded slightly, a smirk still lingering. He leaned forward. "Mr. Musk, I assume you understand the severity of these accusations?" Musk simply tilted his head, listening. Still not a word. The prosecutor continued, flipping through his documents with dramatic flair. "Your Honor, this isn't just corporate misbehavior. This is textbook defiance. Mr. Musk has built a career on pushing boundaries, but today, he's met a boundary that will not bend the law." A murmur spread through the courtroom. The judge chuckled. "Mr. Musk, are you planning to defend yourself, or do we need to explain legal terminology to you first?" Laughter again. Musk remained still, unfazed. The prosecutor seized the moment. "Your Honor, the defendant seems amused. Perhaps he thinks this is just another press conference where he can tweet his way out of trouble. But today, we deal in facts, not Twitter polls." The judge leaned back, his grin widening. "I have to admit, I'm curious, Mr. Musk. Do you actually have a defense, or are we just here to watch you work on your next meme?" More chuckles. The jury exchanged glances. This was looking like an easy case. The prosecutor turned back to the judge. "Your Honor, we ask the court to recognize the overwhelming evidence against the defendant and proceed with swift action." The judge nodded, tapping his gavel lightly. "Mr. Musk, I suggest you say something now before I start wondering if you even belong in this courtroom." For the first time, Musk moved. Taking a slow breath, he adjusted his jacket and finally stood up. His next words would change everything. Musk exhaled, stepping forward with the same effortless confidence he carried into boardrooms and launch sites. He adjusted his jacket, looked directly at the judge, and smirked. "Your Honor," he began, his voice steady, laced with a hint of amusement. "I'd like to thank the prosecution for their very dramatic interpretation of reality." A ripple of murmurs spread through the room. The judge narrowed his eyes, his amusement fading, just slightly. Musk paced slowly. "We keep hearing about rules, about laws, about how I've supposedly disrespected the system. But there's a simple flaw in that argument. It assumes the system actually makes sense in the first place." The prosecutor scoffed. "Is that your defense, Mr. Musk? That the law doesn't make sense?" Musk turned, locking eyes with him.
"No.
"My defense is that you don't understand the law you're trying to enforce." Silence. The same courtroom that had just laughed at Musk was now listening. The judge leaned forward, intrigued despite himself. Musk pulled a document from the table, flipping through its pages casually. "This entire case relies on the claim that my company violated regulations. But let's take a closer look at those regulations, shall we?" He held up the legal text. "This law, written years ago, was designed for an industry that doesn't even exist in its original form anymore. The language is outdated. The framework? Inefficient. And worst of all," Musk smirked, flipping another page. It contradicts itself. The prosecutor shifted, suddenly less confident. That's nonsense. Musk raised a hand. Is it? Let's break this down logically. If I were to follow every single clause written here, my company would actually be violating another federal mandate. He flipped the page dramatically. So tell me, Your Honor, should I follow this law or the one that directly opposes it? The judge's smirk vanished. He reached for his glasses, skimming the text Musk had pointed out. His lips pressed together. Musk continued. You see, laws, just like physics, are based on principles. And principles should never contradict themselves. Yet this case? It's built entirely on contradictions. The jury exchanged glances. The energy in the room had shifted. Musk turned to the prosecutor. You assumed I wouldn't understand legal jargon. But I don't need legal jargon to win this case. I just need logic. The judge tapped his fingers against the bench, no longer laughing. Musk slid a highlighted page toward him. Your Honor, I'd like to direct your attention to Section 42.3 of the very law the prosecution is using against me. The judge adjusted his glasses, scanning the text. The opposing lawyer, sensing something was wrong, flipped through his own documents frantically. Musk let the silence build before he spoke. This law, he said, holding up the text, which they claim gives them authority over my company, was written before the internet even existed. A hushed murmur swept through the courtroom. The judge raised an eyebrow. The prosecutor opened his mouth, to counter, to say anything, but nothing came out. Musk didn't pause. Let's break this down logically. How do you regulate something using rules that predate its very existence? It's like trying to enforce horse-drawn carriage laws on electric vehicles. It doesn't work. The prosecutor cleared his throat, scrambling. And Mr. Musk, that's a weak comparison. The principles of the law still apply. Musk cut in smoothly. Do they? Because Section 43.1 of the same law contradicts your entire case. He flipped another page, pointing. It states that if a technology falls outside the scope of existing regulations, new standards must be drafted before legal action can be taken. The courtroom froze. The judge's eyes darted across the document. His expression shifted. The prosecutor paled. He hadn't seen that clause. Musk folded his arms. So tell me, Your Honor, are we here to enforce justice, or are we watching an attempt to punish innovation with outdated rules? Silence. For the first time, the judge wasn't sure who held the power in the room anymore.